Right, welcome to another biology homework lab. In this little video, we're going to be looking at our spinal cord, which is related to our central nervous system. So a little bit of active revision now. If you've watched the previous videos, we've got to make sure we understand what they're talking about and recall the knowledge to the front of our heads, because that is all how we learn. We put more information onto the old information. So we said what the central nervous system was. Remember, what were the two components of that, or the two parts of it? It was the brain and the spinal cord, and we said that the central nervous system controls all the other body systems that make us up to make us survive, really. And so here we're going to be looking at the spinal cord, because in another video we looked at the brain and we looked at the different parts of the brain, and you should have a nice picture down in your book labeled, coloured, etc. So now let's add to your information about the spinal cord. Alright, so I want to show you some graphics here to really get into your head what the structure of the spinal cord is. I mean, we know it's very, very important, because if you cut it, you can't walk and you end up with a lot of issues there. But let's just zone in a little bit more. Here we have our backbone, or our spine, and that's made up of a lot of individual segments called vertebrae. And within that vertebrae, or in between the vertebrae I should say, are our discs. Now those discs are made up of cartilage. Cartilage is the same material that makes up your nose and your ears. It's very flexible and it's soft. And so that means that the hard bone can move backwards and forwards without sort of rubbing up and crunching into each other, and so that enables us to be quite flexible. Our spine is very, very flexible. So there's our cartilage disc there. But you can see here from this diagram here, there's like a groove, and that groove allows the spinal cord to go through, and that groove is protected, and we'll see in future slides that it's protected. So we've got some bone that goes around our spinal cord there to really protect it. So here is a view of our spinal cord. And you can see there's different sort of shapes. It looks like a bit of a butterfly shape there, and we're going to find out in future videos what that means. It's all to do with different types of nerves. But here's our spinal cord right here, and it's protected in a groove within our vertebrae. Okay, and so here is a picture of a person there showing the brain and the spinal cord, which is our central nervous system, and from that we get lots of other nerves coming out, which we're going to learn is called the peripheral nervous system. And you can see that there's gaps here where those nerve bundles can come out. So from the spinal cord, we can have these bundles that come out here, and then that can sort of send nerves to certain parts of our body, whether that be the heart, the lungs, etc. So let's look at the different sections of our spinal cord, because as I just said in the last video there, if we can imagine that our eyeball is looking from the top, we're looking down, this is what we would see. And so here is our disc. So there's our disc just there, and just behind that disc is our spinal cord. Now let me just enlarge this for you for a second, okay? Because here's our disc here. There's our spinal cord, I should say right there. But this spinal cord is surrounded by different membranes. Remember we said that in a previous video, we had these meninges, they were called. It's actually made up of 3 different layers, but these were coverings of the brain and the spinal cord. And if you remember what I said, the function of the meninges was that it had some fluid in there called cerebrospinal fluid, but it had some fluid, and that fluid cushioned our brain and our spinal cord and also gave it some nourishment. So here you can see our spinal cord just here. And this little blue section there is the fluid. It's the fluid that's surrounding our spinal cord. And then we have 3 layers, a pink layer, a light blue layer, and then we have a yellow layer. So there's our 3 meninges there. But what you can see is you can see that all of this spinal cord is contained within our spinal column. And so you can see our bone here, and this is that section of the bone that you saw before that was protecting our spinal cord. And then of course we can have some of our nerves coming out of there, and then that nerve comes out. So let me just zoom back to our diagram here and up here. So now here we haven't got the meninges surrounding that. They've taken that away, so it makes the spinal cord very clear. But you can see that it's sitting in this sort of area here, which we had just a second ago, and then we can have these spinal nerves coming out right on both sides, and so that is these nerves here. Okay, now those spinal nerves are in different sections. So if we have our vertebrae going like that, we up the top here is to do with our neck, and so they have a specific name called the cervical spine, and the cervical vertebrae, which protects them. And so nerves come out of there, and those nerves sort of control these sections here. So the cranial nerves, or the cervical nerves, they can come out head and neck, diaphragm, triceps, hand. That's what they control. Then we have the next little section here called the thoracic. So your thoracic cavity is just here. So when you learnt about probably your respiratory system, you talked about the thoracic cavity with its ribs protecting our lungs. So the vertebrae in this area is called the thoracic vertebrae. And then of course we have thoracic nerves. And those thoracic nerves are given sort of numbers. We don't need to know the details of that, but they look at chest muscles, abdominal muscles. That's what they control there. And then if you look down here, we have our lumbar spine. You might have heard lumbar before, your lumbar region, your back, part of your back. So that's to do with our lower back there. And they control your leg muscles. The spines, the nerves, I should say, that come out of there go down and control your leg muscles. So that's why if you cut or break your back here, that means all the nerves coming from your leg muscles can't travel up to your brain, and your brain can't control the contraction of your muscles in your legs, so they end up being paralyzed. And then we have the last section here called your sacrum, okay, and that does with your bowel, etc. So different areas of the spine have different nerves that come out. Remember, they come out from the side here, and they will control all the other organs, and we're going to learn more about that in the next video in terms of what they're called. But that's it for this video. Hopefully you got your notes there. You've got a little diagram of here. So what are your notes are about on this video here? What are the key ideas that you've got? What do you think the key ideas are of this video? Probably maybe to do with the function of the spine, the vertebrae protecting the spine. That could be something you've written about, that there's different sections. Have you got a diagram, a rough diagram to show the names of those different sections? And if you do, are they in color? So all of this is how you take your notes, working out what's key, what's important. Any questions that you may have are written in the side column, of course, and I'll see you in the next video where we look at peripheral nervous system. That is, all those nerves that come out that we've just talked about in this lesson, they come out and they interact with other parts of your body. So I'll see you in that video.